We've got a massive group of sunspots rising. We've got a bunch of CMEs, or coronal mass ejections, to cover. Where are they coming from? This sunspot here in the northwest. That and lots more today on the Daily Space Weather. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash. Coming at you from the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. So check out the amazing footage we have here. Just spectacular imagery from SDO. That rising sunspot and two different wavelengths of ionized iron. Some CMEs. We do believe there may be one headed this way. It's pretty diffuse, though. It's not going to have a big signal. Also, forecast for geomagnetic storm and geomagnetic unrest conditions continue. There's the culprit for the region emitting the solar flares and coronal mass ejections. A nearly X-class flare depicted there in the imagery. Sunspots have remained mostly stable here over the past 24. And as forecast yesterday, we did indeed see a rise in the radio flux, a little bit of growth here at the front edge of this group. So that group becoming more likely to produce an X-class flare here as it approaches the limb. We'll be keeping you posted on that. Here's our colorized magnetogram from yesterday plus today on SDO. And take a moment to press like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. I forgot to mention it entirely yesterday. Yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of the official launch of the Smash Team site. So we replaced Patreon with a superior website, our own, smashomash.com/SmashTeam. Shout out to Smash staff for that one. And our gold and silver Smash Team members are indeed the executive producers of the channel. Thanks for continuing to contribute to the content, increasing the likelihood that these videos will continue to exist, remain publicly visible, and free for all to view. It's just the most detailed space weather content in the world, and the most comprehensive imagery of the sun you'll find anyplace. We did put up a gold and silver only post just yesterday. You'll have to log in under your level to find that. Today's featured product is Smasher Price My First Pandemic. So as one of the celebratory things we did for the month of October to celebrate our 1-year anniversary of our smashomash.com/SmashTeam website is to relaunch one of our first pieces of merch. This one right here, these are in the order of best selling, by the way. Smasher Price, My First Pandemic. So once again, I'm wearing it today. Afford yourself a souvenir, having survived the infantile and pathetic human response to a virus. Congratulations, you've survived a global pandemic so far. So maybe pick up yourself a keepsake depicting the entire planet Earth in a mask. Let us know in the comments how effective you think that's been. We are always interested to know. A couple different coffee mugs there. The classic mug, the coffee mug, and I believe the travel cup, all available there. Also leggings, mini skirt. There's a dress, there's a sleeveless top. The graphic t-shirt is a good call. The clock lends well to this design. Smasher Price, My First Pandemic. Links on the homepage to the merch shop right there, Smash-O Merch. It'll put it in order of best selling. We just released that again yesterday. And welcome to the Neo-Renaissance. Visit our links. We are still on Patreon as well. Check out our Discord chat. You can find a permanent invite link to that. Also links to Locals, the Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, and more. Another link you can find on the homepage is the link to SureMed. If you'd like to close up some of the gaps in your health coverage, maybe pick up a hospital indemnity insurance policy after becoming a member of SureMed. Yes, it's a great deal. And just the doctors by phone is worth the $20 a month. It also includes virtual veterinarians, dental discounts, vision discounts, retail and mail order pharmacy, discounts on vitamins, labs, MRIs and CT scans, and lots more. The base membership's not even insurance. It's just an association membership with the American Better Health Organization, a nonprofit dedicated to improving the health of its members. Links below the video as well to that. Links on the homepage. Don't forget to press like, subscribe, share, comment, etc. While we are unable to answer every single comment, we do read them all, thanks to everybody who's left some. We put up some close-up imagery of the sun last night at 171 angstroms. If you haven't seen those, check them out, smashomash.com. We'll also link you to the YouTube channel. If you're viewing on BitChute, you're missing a bunch of the content. Make sure you go subscribe over on YouTube. And let's get to the volcano coverage. So, if you're wondering what's erupting, so am I. Abico. That's an uptick at Abico. It's producing a 19,000-foot plume of volcanic ash, flight level 190. Nishinoshima, flight level 070, as it explodes. Sakurajima erupted, 8,000-foot ash plume from Sakurajima. Subanosejima erupting in an explosive fashion as well, 8,000-foot ash plume from Subanosejima. And headed down to Indonesia, 14,000-foot ash plume from Semeru. Headed out west to Popocatépetl. Exploding is the Central Mexican volcano, producing a flight level 200, 20,000-foot ash plume from Popocatépetl. It is on my bucket list. Fuego exploding in Guatemala, 16,000-foot ash plume. Nevado del Ruiz exploding in Colombia, 21,000-foot ash plume. Not sure if Sangay is erupting. Don't pole vault the caldera and find out the hard way. Revenador is exploding. Flight level 150 over Ecuador from Revenador, and Sabancaya continues to explode, producing a 22,000-foot plume of volcanic ash. Flight level 220 over Peru. Let's check out earthquakes. A bunch happened in the West Pacific. See quite a large amount there. And it looks like things are calming down there at the Recanes Ridge. But in any case, it looks like no huge quakes here, only 5.0 magnitude type quakes, such as that 5.0 southeast of Japan. I think the largest might have been this 5.7. There's a 5.7. I believe that is on the Isle of Kyushu. What do we have here? A southern Mexico quake there at a 5.5 magnitude. And as always, don't forget to leave us a comment if we miss anything in our earthquake coverage. Indonesia had a 5.0. The Mariana Islands region had a 5.5. Greece had a 5.3. The Mid-Indian Ridge had a 5.5. So quite a few quakes there. None of a large magnitude. Again, things calming down apparently at the Recanes Ridge, following a 6 magnitude, which we covered in yesterday's video. So getting back to space here, here's the past 24 hours in 335 plus 171 angstroms. And again, as forecast, we did see an uptick in the 10.7 centimeter radial flux. Radial flux now at 148. Solar flux units, there's the 1-year chart to put that in context. As we approach the new recent high, I think it was about 153, we're getting there, and we might indeed get there. Don't be surprised to see an X-class flare and additional coronal mass ejections. We're going to cover that here in a moment. Space Weather Enthusiast Dashboard. NOAA continues to forecast geomagnetic storm and geomagnetic unrest conditions through about midday on Tuesday. So today, October 2nd, tomorrow, October 3rd, Monday, and Tuesday, October 4th, expecting geomagnetic unrest possibly until about midday there. And we're seeing a real dud as far as the current expected coronal hole high-speed stream. Check out the magnetohydrodynamic pressure. It's quite low. Here's the last 4 hours. Earth's magnetic moment from space. So we're seeing a real weak solar wind here. Just geomagnetically calm conditions continuing. But a big uptick in activity from the source, El Sol, Helios, aka the sun. That's your last 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space. Here's the last 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. Geospace Delta B ground magnetic perturbations. Again, geomagnetism, quite calm. And moving through some more stats before we talk about magnetism. There's the geomagnetic KP index. KP2 is the current situation. And looking at the real-time solar wind, we see a very diffuse solar wind speed. We didn't see any real significant uptick here for the coronal hole high-speed stream. I would have expected it to get to like 40 or 50 protons per cubic centimeter. We only saw about 4 protons per cubic centimeter, but in any case, current conditions are barely 1 proton per cubic, not even 1 proton per cubic centimeter. For the solar wind density, solar wind speed 444 kilometers per second. That is indeed a weak coronal hole high-speed stream. There's the data from the ACE. At the moment, the real-time solar wind is showing I think it's showing the ACE and Discover there. It doesn't really say. Oh, just the ACE. Just the ACE at the moment. So that's really the same data. And let's move into magnetism. There are the GOES magnetometers. We're seeing a little higher readings here from the GOES 16 and GOES 17. Let's take a look at the heliospheric current sheet. So Earth is in a North Pole current sheet at the moment. And interestingly enough, most of the north solar polar field is directed right at the Earth at the moment. So check it out. Here is the line of sight field plot. And only a tiny sliver of the north solar polar field is directed away from the Earth. Most of the north solar polar field directed at the Earth. There you can see all those coronal holes, including the north polar coronal hole, kind of remaining there at the north heliographic pole. We do finally have some south pole oriented coronal holes rotating in here on the northeastern limb. So right up here behind sunspot 3112, we can expect to see some new coronal holes rotating in at the moment. Those are all North Pole oriented coronal hole features. Some great imagery there in 211 angstroms from the past 24 hours from SDO. Next, we'll move to sunspots. Mostly stable here, a little bit of growth in sunspot. I believe it's 3110, which is this lead group. A little bit of extra umbrae forming there to the north of the main umbra. Huge number of sunspots there associated with 3112. Again, they've been mostly stable though. Although some nearly X-class flares coming out of sunspot 3110, which is what we're covering next. No relativistic protons showing up, at least none to speak of. Just a tiny signal happening there in the GOES proton flux. Nothing to really cause very many effects here on planet Earth. And there are those two large flares. That one was an 8.8 approximately, an M8.8 class flare. And we can expect to see the X-ray profile continue to rise here a bit. The likelihood of an X flare becoming higher and higher as sunspot 3110 approaches the limb. We've got some spectacular imagery here in 131 plus 94 angstroms. This is 94 angstroms. Here's a close-up. And let's switch to 131 angstroms. And we're going to add 304 angstroms because it's going to show some of the ejecta a little bit better. So here's the 131 plus 304. You can see some transverse waves happening there, rippling across the surface of the chromosphere. Now you can see some plasma ejecting as well. And here's a star chart for you. Mercury and Venus rising ahead of the sun. If you're up before dawn, you might see that happening if you've got a low horizon. Also Mars, very bright in the morning sky. So here's your solar system forecast. Here's where things are now. We're moving from a crescent waxing to a gibbous waxing. Here's where things will be in a week. It looks like full moon will be in 1 week on the 9th and or 10th. Next, looking at coronagraphs, and we've got several CMEs. I think about 3 coronal mass ejections here. So that's yesterday's imagery. I think early yesterday there was indeed one Earth-directed CME. It's quite diffuse, though, so it's probably not going to make a significant signal, if any. And here's today's imagery so far. Got 42 frames already there from George Mason University. And let's break that down a little bit to give you a little bit better idea of the trajectory, because we've got good imagery from stereo A. So stereo A located at Lagrange 5. We actually paused the video here at 1323 yesterday. So you can see this CME right here. It's pretty diffuse but high speed. We might see that late in the day on the 3rd or early in the day on the 4th. And if you look at it from the perspective of the Soho-Lascaux C3, it looks like it may be off to the southwest for the most part, but there could be some ejecta there. It is very diffuse. It's what we'd call a stealthy coronal mass ejection. Let's let that play through. That CME will miss Earth to the northwest. Also, that one there looks like it's off to the northwest. So not surprising based on the position of those sunspots and so on. Here is the composite imagery. 304 angstroms from SDO plus the Soho-Lascaux C2 and C3. Great view of Venus there as well. And we'll zoom in a little bit here. There's a little closer perspective. Several spectacular CMEs. We've got a crazy number of filaments in the southern hemisphere, so don't be surprised to see additional CMEs. Yesterday we said the likelihood of coronal mass ejections was nearly 100%. That continues on. So we've got huge filaments here, up here, and the southern hemisphere just coated with filaments there. Again, likelihood of additional coronal mass ejections in the earthly zone, nearly 100%. Here's the last about 2.5 hours from the GO 16 SUVI. We stream it regularly on the Twitch channel. Make sure you install the Twitch mobile app. Twitch.tv/Smashomash is the URL. Twitch.tv/Smashomash is where we stream live on the regs. And look at those filaments. Just spectacular. Here's the last 24 hours from SDO. And it is a great wavelength to show the dark absorption features of ejecting solar plasma. You'll see limb darkening happening there. It's one of the ways coronal mass ejections are detected. Also radio bursts, as that plasma emits in certain frequencies of radio, like type 2 and type 3 and type 4 radio bursts. We got plenty of alerts on those. So exciting stuff going on. Again, don't be surprised to see an X-class or multiple X-class flares. We have all the right things in place. So here comes our bonus features portion. We do have some minor surface charging hazards happening here in the Central Pacific Ocean. Coming at you a little later than normal today. Here's the electron flux, as measured by the GO 16 and GO 17 geosynchronous near equatorial satellites. They measure it from their geosynchronous orbit at the F layer of the ionosphere using radiography. Here's the NOAA forecast, and you can see NOAA expecting a downtick there in the electron flux. If the coronal hole wind stream ever strikes, then yeah, I would tend to agree with that. Here's the one-year chart to put it in context. That's from Solon.info, and next let's show the vibrational frequency of the F layer of the ionosphere. So here it is, the ionosphere in its whole planet vibrational glory, the bridge between Earth and space, as we're getting closer to our meteorology segment. There's a lot of stuff shaking overhead. And that is how it's shaken. We're also going to show the anomalygram in case you're not used to looking at the ionogram. It could be a little bit weird looking. So here's the anomalygram, and seeing quite a few high frequency anomalies happening here. High frequency anomalies shown in blue, low frequency anomalies shown in red. That's anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. One slice of Earth's atmosphere, the F layer of the ionosphere, located at about 300 kilometers of altitude. Here's the latest image. That's 12:15 Universal Time. Ionogram and anomalygram. Next, we're going to show the electron flux, the free electrons, from approximately your 12,500 mile altitude orbiting GPS satellite down to your handset level. It's the coupled plasmasphere, ionosphere, thermosphere. Anyway, the point is there's a plasmasphere right here. Here's the inner Van Allen belt. This is another plasmasphere, and then you've got the ionosphere below that. And the total electron content is showing the free electrons throughout that entire area. It's still looking pretty orderly here. We tend to see major anomalies during coronal hole high-speed streams, and at the moment, not so much. That'll show you the most likely places for GPS errors as your signal is refracted when that GPS satellite must communicate through a lot of free electrons. So let's move on. We've got meteorology to cover. First, the latest intensitygram and latest colorized magnetogram. So the culprit for all those major flares has been sunspot 3110. And there are the fields. It's still quite magnetically complex. It's beta gamma delta class. Its capability of producing major flares remains. And next, this sunspot here is just spectacular. Check out the fields. Yowzers. That might even be named multiple sunspots. And note this group here to its north as well. The likelihood of that producing major flares, very, very high. Crazy amount of magnetic complexity there. It's beta gamma delta class as well. So quite a lot of activity there kicking up. And let's refresh that and pause for station identification. Smasho here at the Smash News Network. Least busted name in news. So this is yesterday plus today's data in 3 different ionized iron wavelengths: 94, 193, and 335 angstroms. By the way, it's about that time. It's about time to move from space to Earth. So what we're looking at here, this is our meteorology segment, beginning now, is the turbulent and very inhospitable environment of Antarctica. Check it out, the pressure down there. There's a low there at less than 960 hectopascals. That is a cold, stormy, nasty area. Anyway, let's switch to our regularly scheduled wind coverage. Not pressure. There we go. There are the surface winds of the eastern world. Next, the jet streams, the 250 hectopascal winds. are looking like this. The jet streams of the western world looking like this. Strong jet stream here over the southern and southeastern U.S. Surface winds of the west looking like this. Surface winds of the central world, that is Africa, Europe, and the Middle East, looking like this. And here are the jet streams. I'm going to show you a couple forecasts here. Some current lightning strikes, if we have any. First, the clouds and fog over the Americas. That's what's going on. And here's your weather.gov map, and check it out. We've got some hard freeze watches there, hard freeze warnings in places like New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, parts of New York. Some coastal flood advisories here, some gale warnings there up the northeast coast. If your county's lit, click your county on weather.gov. We hope the cleanup efforts are going well in Florida. It's been looking kind of bad. We hope the southern portion of the state is not now an island and part of the Caribbean. All right, so here's your GFS temperature anomaly forecast since we saw those hard freeze watches. That's the 72-hour GFS temperature anomaly forecast in degrees Celsius. We've also brought the 72-hour GFS pressure and precipitation forecast, which is expecting this low to kind of hang around just east of the Chesapeake Bay there. And we'll see if there's a divergence in the European forecast here in a moment. Here's windy.com satellite imagery, and let's switch to pressure. By the way, windy.com has a great mobile app. We're going to show the pressure forecast based on the European model. Now let's move this forward about 3 days. And there's the Euro model, looking very similar to the GFS model, that low just hanging out just east of the Chesapeake. Next, our NASA GOES lightning mapper. And got some lightning in the central Rockies there, it looks like. Let's see if we've got any terrestrial strikes at the moment from lightningmaps.org. There we go, it's connected. And indeed, we do have some Utah and some lightning around Grand Junction, Colorado. There's the likely thunder propagation lines. Looks like a little bit of thunder rolling into Grand Junction. Next time you hear thunder, check out lightningmaps.org. Maybe you'll convince the natives that you're Thor or something like that. We wish you luck. Next, U.S. Doppler radar map. There's the all 50 state view. Zooming out briefly to show Alaska and Hawaii. And now focusing on the lower 48. As it continues to rain in the mid-Atlantic states, here's your shortwave radiation map showing clouds and fog. And there's your water vapor map to close things out. We'll bring it back briefly. Bring it back briefly for a recap. There is the U.S. Doppler radar. There is the shortwave radiation map showing clouds and fog. And there's the water vapor satellite. As a bunch of moisture is being held in place over the mid-Atlantic states as it continues to rain and rain. Just enough to keep the roads wet and annoy me. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash. Signing off from the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. May COVIDiocy be cured wherever you are. Opinions expressed in this video, not necessarily the opinions of Smash News Network, least busted name in news.